Coming up on 101 Sports.
The NFL Combine takes place this week, and our experts will show you the ins and outs of a few drills.
Plus, the Winter Olympics has come to a conclusion, as has the NBA trade deadline. And our NBA experts will give props to a few teams.
All that and so much more. 101 Sports starts right now. Hello, welcome to 101 Sports. I'm Jake Sotir.
And I'm Ryan Balick. If tempers flare today, hopefully we can both keep our jackets on, unlike Mr. Boeheim. Here's starting five.
The 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi are complete, and it's safe to say once and for all that it wasn't as big of a train wreck as we thought it would be after a pretty rocky start to the Games. Ryan, looking back now, was Sochi a success, or does the IOC still to blame for what happened early on?
I don't think Sochi was a success. I don't think it was a failure. I mean, going into this Olympics, I thought everything was going to go wrong, but it was fine. Like the events were fine. We didn't hear any complaints throughout the competition. The only the good story we heard were people adopting all the stray dogs.
Yeah, that was cool.
But they spent $50 billion. Putin spent $50 billion on the Olympics. And it was nothing to remember. It was supposed to be Russia's coming out party. Not for me.
I could not agree more. Earlier on in the Games, there was a whole lot of problems with the safety of the courses.
Right.
And that was huge PR issue for Russia.
Especially Shaun White.
So they started off behind the eight ball, but they recovered a little bit, and it ended up being not a bad game. I don't think you could say really that it was a bad game. You couldn't say it was a great one either, but you're right.
They spent competition just didn't do it for
They spent $50 billion on it, Putin did, for a mediocre game. So that's why I think the real story is here.
Canadian forward John Tavares suffered a severe knee injury against Latvia that is now going to keep him out for the rest of the NHL season. Tavares plays for the Islanders and is far and away their best player, and there is now discussion whether the NHL will allow their players to compete in the 2018 Winter Olympics. Jake, what do you think about this? Would you blame owners for not letting their players play?
Absolutely, I would blame them for that. Look, hockey is the one sport, I think, in the major four sports that's still got ties to national pride. Look at every other sport. Every other major sport doesn't have the international.
The Olympics is the best.
International platform for competitive hockey, competitive sport, like hockey does for international play. That's why I think it's so important that these guys get to play in the Olympics to represent their countries. It's like no other sport there is.
As a player, I obviously see where you're coming from, but the question is, do you blame owners? And the owners give these guys millions, multi-million-dollar contracts, especially a guy like John Tavares who's making a ton of money. And now, because of the Olympics, he played 2 games against meaningless teams, and now he's really costing his team the rest of the season. So, I don't know. You got to take it both ways.
You could have, I mean, yes and no. The John Tavares injury was a freak accident. That could have happened in the middle of the NHL season. You can't ever stipulate that these things are going to happen one place and not another.
The difference between this and the NBA with the Summer Olympics is at the NHL, they're going all out every single game in these Olympics. So it's a dangerous situation.
It is, but if you're the owners, you kind of have to respect the players' feelings toward their country.
You're paying them.
I don't know. I guess you're right. The money's a big factor, but I would let them play. The MLB has decided to accept a rule change that will ban all home plate collisions unless the catcher has the ball and goes into the baseline to field the throw. MLB and its players are calling it a, quote, one-year experiment to try and improve player safety. Ryan, do you think the new collision rule is going to last?
I do think it will last. I saw players come out within the last couple days, catchers specifically, saying they don't like the rule, which just actually kind of surprised me. But I don't think a player should be given any sort of advantage for being an enormous brute that is willing to shove their shoulder or their elbow face first into a catcher's head. That is just totally unnecessary. They can still slide around. We see guys like Jose Reyes, speedsters just slide around the plate all the time. They can make do with this. It's going to make the game safer. It's going to stay.
I agree. It's going to make the game safer. Another thing I really like about this rule is it gives umpires discretion over the what happens on the play, the call.
Regardless of the end, yeah, you're totally right.
They can make a call. It gives them power now where they didn't have power before in that situation. It was you're either safe or out. But now they can say the guy was in the way or whatever. I love that they're giving the umpires back the power in a sport where they've taken it away from them so much.
Many NBA stars, including LeBron James, have decided that the NBA All-Star break is not long enough. Players who get selected to participate in the All-Star weekend receive little time to vacation and relax like their NBA teammates. So, Jake, do you think the NBA should give more time for the All-Star break?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that if you're going to allow every other player in the NBA to get their rest. You should allow your star players some rest.
You don't think they're getting rest at the All-Star break? They're not doing anything. They're just hanging out with celebrities and their friends.
They're getting some rest, but it's not the same kind of rest that those other guys are getting. They're still working out and they're still doing things athletically, and those other guys get a few days off to let their bodies heal. If you want your star players to play at their peak ability all season,
they need a break. Give them
some sort of break. Just give them some sort of break to rest. Not that big of a deal.
I think it is kind of a big deal. I mean, there's nothing going on during this time of sports. I mean, especially with the Olympics going on. Literally, there was nothing to watch during All-Star Weekend, and a lot of people don't even like watching All-Star Weekend in the first place. So I think they need to. This is just fine. I mean, LeBron, Carmelo, they're all hanging out with the best celebrities in the world down in New Orleans. They're taking a little vacation of their own. I think it's just
I don't think they need the break, but I don't think it could possibly hurt them, and I don't think it could hurt the NBA either. Russell Wilson is less than a month removed from a Super Bowl victory, and instead of celebrating, he's at Texas Rangers camp for spring training. No, not as a player, but as a motivational speaker to the minor leaguers fighting for a roster spot. But with Jameis Winston expressing his interest in playing 2 professional sports, it got us thinking, could a QB in the NFL play 2 sports? Baseball would be the other sport.
Well, a QB can clearly be a motivational speaker and also be a quarterback in the NFL. But can he be a Major League Baseball player along with a quarterback in the NFL? I don't think so. And the reason I think that is for a few reasons, actually. Because the quarterback itself is probably the hardest job in the world. And it is a 12-month job, and you're under an enormous amount of pressure all the time. And also, the general managers of both baseball teams and NFL teams, I just can't imagine like you're going to spend all your money and trust all this money in the face of the franchise, your quarterback, and allow him to play another sport.
Yeah, no, for both sides. The general manager for baseball, I'm sure, would not want a guy playing football getting injured. And the same side, if you're a quarterback, you're not going to want a guy throwing the baseball in the offseason. But no, quarterback is a 24/7 job, and 24/7 means over the summer also. There's so much preparation that goes into that job. You got to get your teammates ready. You got to get your locker room together as a team. Football is such a team game. You got to be around with your team all summer.
And if you're a quarterback, you can't take your job for granted. I mean, we've seen NFL quarterbacks get subbed in and out all the time. So, I mean, your job is not safe at all, and going to play 2 sports is not the best idea.
Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders got away with it because Jackson was a running back and Sanders was a cornerback, and it was a long time ago. But in this day and age, I agree. I don't think it can happen.
How about that? We kept our jackets on. Coming up next, I'll discuss the big moves from the NBA trade deadline. Stick around.